sweet and suave. Quasi dica render dolce, dolce, non si vede, ma è così, dica render dolce, suave, piacevole una cosa. Indurre altrui con efficaci parole a credere o a fare che sia, un linguaggio un pochino desueto questo, eccetera. So, we appeal to reason, we appeal to emotions, we use some linguistic choices, we make some linguistic choices that somehow, in one way or another, must be felt as suave or pleasant or ultimately as sweet. Okay, I'm not reading this, so don't worry, but sweet, also if you check the etymology, it goes back to the Pi root sword, which is the same. Now, within this reflection on the core meaning of persuading somebody, which is paradoxical. Why? Because on the one hand, it's about sweetness, suavità, pleasantness, creating a nice, peaceful environment, and on the other hand, it's about prevailing, urging, pushing, winning, vincere. So there is a context, and this informs all our discourse. When we study the way languages, and I mean verbal languages and visual languages now, can persuade, even linguistics can be helped by advertising and marketing discourse. When people study advertising discourse and marketing discourse, of course they are taught, a loro viene insegnato, how to be able to persuade people. Because if you work in market research, first over the phone, you immediately have to convince the person at the other end of the phone at least to listen to you. If you work in a call center, if you have ever worked in a call center, you know that it is incredibly important. The very first moment when the other person answers your call. And in persuasion discourse, especially advertising, in this case, they refer to this AIDA principle, which is an acronym that also informs our discourse. The A stands for attention, to attract the attention. So, first of all, when we use language, we have to, if we want to persuade, but our task is not to persuade, but to analyze persuasive language, of course. But it's useful to consider who is creating these persuasive languages. Of course, politics, marketing, and advertising are privileged fields to see how that language works. Attention, to attract attention, very easily to understand. The message, the medium, the words, the image, etc. must be good enough to grasp the attention, to catch the attention. In fact, many devices, for example, the metaphor that we have briefly mentioned, are called attention-catching devices, linguistic devices, or attention-grabbing devices, instruments that are able to grasp the attention. But if you only get the attention of the others, it's not enough, because you can see a poster, an advertising poster, with a very striking image, but then you think, well, who cares? I've got my lesson now and I'm running late. The I stands for interest. You have to gain interest. So, of course, in advertising, I'm not talking about advertising now, although it's fascinating also to see how they not only persuade, but manipulate people. And persuasion and manipulation are two different things, but we will go there, we will get there at some point. They have to know their target. They call it like this, a target. So the target audience, like in Italian, un obiettivo. So they have to know, and they have to understand that after getting their attention with a striking verbal or visual image, message, that message must stay. They have to pay attention. If they don't pay attention, the convincere, so the prevailing of that opinion has failed. And then you have to build a desire. Now, this is plain advertising and marketing discourse, but try to think of all the texts that we have read and everything that we have said about intercultural communication, the creation of stereotypes, of prejudice, etc. Desire, convince customers, in this case I'm talking about customers, clienti, but we can apply customers to people in general, that they want the product or that an argument will satisfy their needs and fulfill their expectations. The girl over there before was saying that needs, sorry, it was wishes and what did she say? And desires, desires, yes, of course, but also needs and expectations. So the first is very, very typical of advertising, because if you advertise, there is a product to be sold. So you have to convince people that that product is not only good, but you can't miss it. It will change your life almost. But for us, the second definition is very important, because a politician or a journalist or an intercultural mediator is not selling anything. It's not selling a concrete product. But maybe, and here I am being a bit ideological or maybe romantic, I don't know, they are selling something much more important than a product. They are selling an ideology. They are selling opinions. They are selling views of the world or worldviews, ideas on, let's say, foreign people, immigration, women, children, whatever you can think of. So they are selling something that is maybe more important for the development of an equitable society. The argument will satisfy their needs, so they please the audience by touching what they need, what they perceive they need, and what they expect from life. Advertising is very easy to understand. If you advertise a shampoo, it is obvious that the potential customer wishes or expects his or her hair to be beautiful, for example. And this can be applied to everything that is advertised. If I want to convince that immigration is a swamp, that immigrants are illegals, etc., then I will have to play a bit more subtly, un pochino più sottilmente. And finally, AIDA, the D will be, the A, will be action. There must be an action. In advertising, it's very easy to understand. The action is buying. What about non-concrete persuasion? Not advertising, not marketing or placing the market. What kind of action did the journalist of The Sun, what kind of action did that journalist of The Sun try to push us into doing? To lead the audience towards an action, buying a product or simply agreeing with an argument. So the action that a politician is asking us to perform is, first of all, to agree on something. Then, talking about politicians, if we agree with them, basically we will perform a physical, practical action, which is, of course, voting for them. And voting for them, now it's quite a concrete action. But what about the journalist of The Sun? He didn't want us to vote for him, but he wanted to send a biased message about immigration. So if we agree with this idea that Britain is swamped, overwhelmed, invaded by an army of illegals, of course we ci allineiamo, allinea, with his, in this case it was a man, ideology. So the AIDA principle is not something that can be only related to advertising discourse or marketing, because it happens all the time. And this is what we will explore. So two concepts now, two major concepts so far. And euphemism is just one of them, is the idea of this appeal to reason or emotion by making something sweet, by referring to sweetness, while deceiving the listeners into believing, so winning their opinions. And then we have this series of actions that eventually must be performed. Otherwise, you haven't been persuasive or convincing enough. Grab the attention, maintain the interest, develop a desire to convince that the argument will be useful, nice for them, and perform some kind of action. Some kind of action. So this must be just remembered as a typical schema, a typical framework within which language operates. And finally, we get to what is, for me, most important. Everything that we have discussed so far, AIDA principle, marketing, convincing, buying, advertising, etc., is basically reducible to these three words, ethos, logos, and pathos, that come from Aristotle. Have you started? Very okay, good enough. So you are anticipating your preparation. Okay, so anyway, for those who haven't studied, let's start and comment. It's not so difficult to understand. Actually, Aristotle seems very easy here. In other realms, not so easy, of course. But it's much more complex than we can think of. So the common goal, now it is obvious, and we have analyzed some persuasive texts without talking about persuasion so far, is to influence the reader's audience view on a certain subject, whether that means changing their opinion completely or simply strengthening an already existing view. Think of immigration. You can be changed by the proliferation of messages about immigration, pro-immigration or against immigration, or like it happens with stereotypes, really the same process. You can have some ideas, some implicit stereotypes that you're not aware of, like you associate black people with criminality, but you know that this is not fair, because for many years, since you were a child, you have studied slavery and the Civil War, the American Civil War, and you know that it's not nice, it's not correct to be racist. But then again, something is going on in our minds for many reasons, and this can be applied to all kinds of ideology, left-wing, center, or right-wing. Strengthening an already existing view. So if we think of implicit stereotypes, those that we don't really know, we feel, or we have, in fact, this strengthening is very important, because that can really make, for example, an implicit stereotype transform into an explicit one. And that is very dangerous, because if we have many explicit stereotypes, our vision is biased, prejudiced, partial, parziale. In order to best accomplish this, speakers, writers, users of language, generally, users of language use a variety of arguments and strategies, metaphors, figures of speech, visual language, euphemistic language, onomatopoetic language, romantic language, logical language, and so on. And the list goes on forever. But the three rhetorical appeals are ethos, logos, and pathos. And our task is to be able, if we really want to consider the power of language within intercultural communication, is to be able to identify them. And sometimes it isn't so easy. Sometimes it is plain, apparent. You understand what we're talking about. Some other times it requires